and welcome to A Drummer's Guide to, the podcast all about the things that it takes to be a professional musician, aside from just playing your instrument, which obviously should be a given. My name is Emily Dolan Davies. I am a drummer by trade. I've also just realised that every time I say my own name, I have two ways of saying it, and it's a bit weird. Emily Dolan Davies or Emily Dolan Davies. But anyway, how are you doing? Today, I would like to tackle a subject that I get asked about a lot, and that is the subject of social media, and basically, what is the point of social media? So, obviously, I'm sure that if you've seen any of the stuff that I sort of put out into the world, I'm fairly active on social media, fairly active, and a lot of people come to me and they sort of say to me, you know, what should I be posting? You know, it's such an overly saturated place, and I don't stand out. I don't know what I should be doing or saying or playing or blah 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 blah, and people are very overwhelmed about social media and what they should be putting out there, and you know, it is tough. It's rough when you look at your own let's say Instagram feed, and you're just seeing everyone putting essentially the highlight reels of their life, which is what I always say, like, social media is not real. I know that everyone says that, but it's true. It's not. You're looking at someone's highlight reel of their life. You're not looking at the sort of the nuts and bolts of what's happening behind the scenes, the struggles and all that sort of stuff. It's part of the reason that I kind of started this podcast and try to be very open and vulnerable about stuff, is because I want to lift the lid on the reality of being a professional musician. It's great, there's some beautiful sunshine and rainbows that go on, but there's also a lot of struggle and there's a lot of stuff that people don't see. But bear in mind, 99.9999999% of people are only putting the good stuff and going, hey, look at me, look at this cool thing that I'm doing, which is awesome, and love that. Absolutely love that. Every time I see that, I'm like, yes, go on there, because I understand the work that has had to go into that moment. But anyway, let's get back to you. If you're struggling with this as well, if you're just thinking like it's absolutely pointless, I feel like there was a turning point for me, because I was in that place. I still have been recently in that place where I'm like, why am I even doing this? Like, I lose my centre and I lose my focus as to why I'm doing stuff, and that's often when I go through a stagnant period. Maybe I'm not seeing that many views or in that much interaction, and you know, it's very difficult to quantify because it's just sort of thrown out there, and some posts just do really well and that's great, but then other ones don't, and that's a bit demoralising, and I'm not immune to that. You know, I'm human at the end of the day, but there was a turning point for me with social media where I went from going, what in the world should I be posting? And it was like a struggle, and it was just like wading through concrete, trying to get together posts and something interesting to post, and you know, oh, I wonder what people would like. Anyway, there was a turning point for me. Well, it was sort of a turning point in that there was a realisation, because I'm someone that I like just trying things. I find it very interesting, and social media I find a really great space to do that in. Which is what I mean is I just like, I like creating things and then seeing how they're received and then changing stuff or doing more of it or seeing what I enjoy and doing more of that, and you know, it's a constant kind of process, evolution and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I was listening to this book, and in all honesty, I can't remember the first time I heard this phrase, but I've heard it many times since, and I'm going to attribute it to, it's definitely not the first time I heard it, but it's the one that I remember the most. I even remember where I was walking when I heard this, and it was from a book called Evergreen Assets by John Lammerton, great author from Plymouth, I think he's from. He's wicked. Go check out his books. The one that got me was Routine Machine. So my kind of book. Like, I actually sort of didn't do a review of it on here, but I kind of spoke about it before. And anyway, he did this book called Evergreen Assets, and there's this theory. And as I say, I've read it in multiple books. I've seen it in multiple spaces that says the only reason that people will buy from you, and you know, this is obviously in a business setting, this is talking about products, whatever, but let's talk about if you want to get hired on a gig, if you're doing remote recording like I do, you know, anything like that. The only reason that people will buy from you or by you, sounds awful, doesn't it? Is because they know, like, and trust you. And I mean, it can be one of those three things, but essentially, if you've got all those things, people are so much more likely to get in touch with you, to want for you to work on their project. And this is the basis of everything. And I sort of, throughout my life, I noticed this. Because I don't know whether you've had this. I had this very recently. Oh, it was so annoying. I won't go into detail because it's unfair, but I basically was trying to be sold to by someone in a situation where I literally was like, I could not get out of this situation. And I'll just say, it was a dentist and he was trying to sell me a treatment on my teeth, right? But this dude, I don't trust him. I don't trust him. And I was just like, I feel like you're just trying to sell this to me. Like, it's not because I actually need it. I didn't say this to him, but it was interesting because my brain, all I wanted to say to him was like, dude, you're missing a basic thing. People need to know, like, and trust you. Now, I felt like I was getting to know him because I chat to everyone and I love finding out about people. And, you know, he's very passionate about dentistry and what he does, which is awesome. And I'm into it and I love that. It makes me happy. But then other things that he would say and the way he was conducting himself, I was like, I don't think I actually like you, and therefore I'm not sure that I trust your motivations. That's what it was. It didn't feel, there was something off. And although I can't put my finger on it, it doesn't matter. The point is the result is the same. It's like, I'm not going to book in with this treatment with you. And he wanted me to go private and all that. So I've got an NHS dentist. I'm so proud of myself. But anyway, he was trying to like sell me this private procedure. But I was just like, no. Just no. No. So anyway, like I say, I often bring it back to that, and I sort of question myself, like, why am I not going for this, and what's stopping me? What's the friction point? And often it's because I don't know, like, or trust the person. And equally in the reverse, I will, you know, I have like, objectively, subjectively, I don't know, I have spent money on things because it's not even like, there's one particular time that I had, right? I paid for this service that literally, it was so abstract, this service, but the person selling it to me and that was gonna give me this information, I adore them. They're wonderful, and I love just chatting to them and spending time with them. And I was like, this thing is so not tangible at all, what you're trying to sell me right now. But I said yes, and I spent a lot of money doing this thing. It turns out it was brilliant. I learned so much. Luckily, it was great. But it's so interesting that, you know, and again, I just kind of question myself, like, why did I do that? It seems very illogical to do that. But it's because I knew them, I liked them, and I absolutely trust them. So that is now my kind of baseline of what I base all of my social media posts on. And I just think it's an interesting concept to share, because I think that people are so caught up in, I need to post something that is, you know, impressive. Often posts will need to have high production values, which takes time, could take money, depending on what you're doing, how you're doing it. And it's difficult to maintain, especially when at the end of the day, like, I don't know who you are listening to this, but I'm going to speak for the creative community in terms of, like, we're musicians, or we're writers, or maybe we are filmmakers, but the point is that, like, I just want to play music. That's literally what I want to do. I do love all this other stuff. It is a creative outlet for me. But at the end of the day, the baseline is I want to play music. And all this other stuff, you can get so caught up in making everything so shiny and so perfect, and so impressive, in inverted commas, that you forget that maybe the energy shouldn't be spent there. So yeah, I just thought this was an interesting sort of thing to flag up, because once you kind of realize that the reason that people are going to get in touch with you is because they know, like, and trust you, it becomes I say it becomes a little easier to post, but it changes the onus, you know. What I will say is that it is scary. It is scary, for me at least, because for me, and I've had this since, weirdly, I've had this for a long time, since, actually always, to be honest, but specifically I'm thinking about the video that I posted out on YouTube in 2011 or 2012, which was me playing Foo Fighters song, Best of You, wrapped in fairy lights, right? And the fairy lights were a last minute addition because I wanted something different. And again, it's coming down to that kind of, not shock and awe, but like something interesting, because I was so insecure about my playing and me as a player that I thought, oh, I better have something interesting because I myself am not interesting. So even if people don't like the playing, at least they can go, well, it's interesting. And that's the reality of it, that's the truth of it. I'm not sure I've ever said that before, but that is what it is. There's a second component to that, is that, which is, sorry, if you listen to the audio on that, it is shocking. It is shocking, the camera angles and all that, it's very raw. And that was a decision. And the reason was because I was so worried that people would think that it was heavily edited, that wasn't me actually playing, you know, all that, maybe sound replacement, or the beat detector has been used and things have been shifted into place and blah, 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 blah. But it wasn't, and I wanted to make sure that it sounded so raw that you were like, well, it must be her, because you would have made it sound better. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I'm not sure that makes sense, but in my illogical brain, in my 25-year-old, 24-year-old brain, that made perfect sense to me. So that's why I did it the way I did it, and it was very, like I say, purposeful. It came from a place of great insecurity. Again, it's not something that I feel like I'm admitting to it right now, but it's okay. I'm not ashamed of it. It's just like, no, that was how I thought. Arguably, that's still how I think, because I don't want to be the person that people look at and go, oh my gosh, her life's so perfect. It's not. It's not. And that comes from within myself. That comes, you know, outside. I'm very lucky. There's so much about my life I love, I adore. However, I have some massive flaws in my life, like massive. And that's internally, externally, like all the things. And I just really had this feeling of like, I wanna share all the gritty bits. I want to share all the difficult bits, because I don't want people to feel alone. Now, as I said, I had this way of thinking since way back. And an example of that as well, if you want to talk about, for instance, right now, talking to you, this all started back in 2014. And that was it 2014 or was it 2015? I think it was 2015, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I think it was just after I split with The Darkness. Anyway, I started doing these videos talking to camera. And I honestly don't... do you know what? I do remember where this came from. It was because... I've only just remembered this, and I can't remember his name, but there was this dude on YouTube who would just talk on subjects, and he was probably about, I don't know, he was in his early 20s, and he was so funny and he was so interesting. I think he started out just reading maybe Harry Potter books or something. I didn't watch that, I'm not really into Harry Potter, but he'd just talk about stuff, just life and what was happening, and I was so intrigued by this dude. He's just a regular dude, and it's some dude from the States. And anyway, I just thought, well, why couldn't I do that? Why not? Like, maybe that would be interesting. So I started this YouTube series called Ask Em. It's still up there, so if you want to go check it out, it's on my YouTube. And even that, when I very first started doing that, I was so insecure about it that I went so long, can I just say, it was so long. I spent way too much time on it. I would either I would often get other people basically to ask me questions. Like I'd put it out on, I don't even know, maybe Twitter. I can't remember what platform it was, maybe Instagram. And just say, you know, if you've got any questions, ask me, I'll answer it. And I do these 3 or 4 minute rambles basically. But I would go through and I would snip out any silence or any ums or any just pauses, because I was so embarrassed about being human, essentially. So anyway, this is where this started. And like I say, this was 2015, so we're talking 8-9 years ago, right? And now here I am, right now talking to you. And actually, I've gotten to a place where the more vulnerable I get, and the more that I show the warts and all side of me, the more that people connect with me, and the more that people know, like, and trust me. And for me, this manifests itself in, getting asked to do sessions, getting asked to do gigs, clinics, masterclasses. I get my new coaching clients, and it's mostly through people just seeing me on social media chatting, like I am right now, and podcasts. Yes, that is social media, whether you like it or not. It is. It's a platform, and also through obviously seeing me playing on my Instagram feeds or on YouTube or wherever else. But it's the combination of all this stuff, and it takes time. And if you have a basis of stuff that people can just, get intrigued by you, by one post, and then go, I want to find out more about this person. And then they scroll through your feed and you're just letting more and more of yourself out into the world. You're more likely not just to get people getting in touch with you because something has resonated, but they will be people that, because you've resonated with them, you're already on a great level of connection and conversation will flow. This is what I found in my life. When people get in touch, even if it's for interviews for podcasts or other people's podcasts, or as I say, whether it's clients that want me to record for them or whether it's people that want me on the road with them, there's some basic kind of points of reference that we both have or all have, because they feel like they know me a little bit. And it's such a wonderful place to be in, because as someone who is very, very, or can be very insecure, I'm getting better because I'm finding that the people that find me are brilliant and I really adore them. But yeah, as someone that's very insecure, have been. I'm not as insecure now. I'm kind of getting over it. I'm kind of getting bored of it. To know that somebody already knows something about me and is willing to reach out off the back of that, it just gives me a bit of confidence. Oh, okay, cool. You've seen something in me, so let's chat. Let's go from there. Let's develop this relationship, and see what happens. So, and as I say, it doesn't make it any less scary. And being vulnerable with people is terrifying. And obviously, I'm not saying that everyone should be going out and doing talking videos. Some people find this very difficult, talking to camera, which I get. And like I say, when I started out, I felt the same, but I also really enjoy chatting. Don't know whether you've noticed. I spend a large amount of time talking to myself and not just on camera. And I will tell you about that one day, because it's a very good coping mechanism for me. But again, I'll tell you about that another time. Again, that's a very vulnerable thing for me to admit, that I do spend a large amount of my life walking and talking to myself. If you see me out and about, you'll see what I mean. But anyway, what was I saying? Yes, I'm not saying that necessarily, this might not work for you, but maybe it's about just letting people into those vulnerable moments. And they can be teeny tiny, maybe if you're creating art, let people into your process of how you create that art, and let them into the things that don't work and the things that you don't like, as well as the things that you like, and they can go on that journey with you. For me, my whole thing is connection. I love connecting with people. Or rather, my main aim with all of this, is just to hopefully have people feel less alone. I want to bring all the people into me and just hug them and just go, we're all in this together. Everyone, we're all human, we're all flawed as hell, and there's so much wrong, but there's so much to connect on. And I want to always forever want to just focus on the things that connect us as best I can. And that's why I do this. It really is. So that's my thing. I love connection and all of that sort of stuff. I've got friends that are obsessed with research. Like, that is their thing. They will spend inordinate amounts of time researching stuff and finding out all of the options before they make decisions on stuff. Let us into that world. Like, show us what you're researching, what you found out. Like, I would love to see that. I'm fascinated by people's journeys and how they get there. So maybe that's your thing. Or maybe, I had a coaching client recently who was just hitting a plateau in their playing and what they wanted to be doing. And they were really struggling and they didn't know where to turn. Well, maybe if if you have a brave moment, let us into that. Let us into your thought processes and, what you're going through and how you're feeling. Aside from anything, just not feeling alone, I feel, does really help things. But you may help someone else in that same space, feeling that same way. And to me, that's really so valuable, but also really interesting. And sometimes just by, expressing those things, it actually helps, maybe not accelerate your journey, because I don't necessarily think that it's good to accelerate these things, but just become more aware of how you're actually feeling and what is actually happening. And maybe it might even spark some ideas in yourself how to move forward. So anyway, this is kind of a roundabout way of saying that if you are struggling with that, like, what is the point of this social media thing? If this has resonated with you, that maybe it's not about just putting out there this shiny, look at me things, and it's more about putting out the, let me let you get to know me. And again, do it in stages. Being vulnerable is hard. I have learned this. I continue to learn this. And like I say, this is not just on my social media life that I am learning this. This is in my day-to-day life. I've been having talking therapy for the first time in my life. I talk about therapy a lot. I've had CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, on and off since I was about 21. It has made an immeasurable difference to my life, and I would highly recommend therapy to anyone and everyone. I don't care whether you think that you have issues or not. I think it's valuable, right? But this talking therapy, I've been having it since April, so yeah, 5-ish months. It's changed my life. It's changed my life, along with happening to read some books that weirdly have been on my shelf for a couple of years, and I just haven't got round to reading them. And I'm not sure whether I believe this, but people do say that, books come into your life when they're meant to. I don't know whether I believe that. However, there is one particular book that, honestly, I think I mentioned it before. It's a book called Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And it's essentially a memoir sort of thing about from this writer. She struggled a lot with addiction in her life, and anyway, it's a story about stuff. But anyway, she's very open and, again, very vulnerable about her experience through addiction, relationships, just life generally, and it's fascinating, and it really, really, really resonated with me. And then that coupled with therapy, my whole world has been turned upside down, literally in the last 4 weeks, really, in terms of my understanding of what it means to be human, which sounds really big and maybe over the top. I don't care, that's how it feels. It's, I don't even know whether to go into it. I probably won't, not yet. I'm still exploring, so let me get to a point where I can articulate it half decently, and then I will talk about it more, because it's more on a life thing versus a musician thing. I will talk about it at some point, because it's mind-blowing to me. I never knew. There's things that I just never knew that are so basic that most of you will go, yeah. But I bet there's at least one person that will go, wait, what now? Anyway, yeah, I'll talk about it another time. It's a big subject. Why was I talking about this? I can't remember, but yes, vulnerability is hard. But if you can have these brave moments of just opening up and teeny tiny little things, a step at a time. You haven't got to talk about the fact that you're in therapy and what you're talking about like I am right now. It can just be something like, I feel pretty rubbish today. I'm struggling today and this is why. A little 1 minute thing on Instagram. Now, also, this may not get any attention or whatever. It's fine. Move on. My whole thing as well with social media and what is the point? People get so like bogged down with how saturated it all is, how disposable it all is. And for me, that is such a liberating thing. The fact that it is so disposable creates space to try things. So I can put something out there that I might in myself be really scared about putting into the world. But I just keep telling myself that it doesn't matter. Because someone, think about when I always say, think about when you're scrolling on Instagram, say, or TikTok or whatever. You're scrolling, you might see something that, I like that. You like it, you keep going. You probably will never think about that post again, let alone all the things that you've just scrolled past that you didn't even clock. Great. Nobody cares about what you're posting out there, and there is something very liberating about that. And you can just keep trying stuff and just keep putting stuff out there, and there's something very cathartic about putting stuff out into the world. And if it does connect, that's some whole forget about virality, going viral, all of that, which is fine. Honestly, it's fine, but I don't think it's necessarily a good thing. I think it's better to have a thick foundation of people that connect often with your content versus one post that gets millions of views of people that maybe aren't in line with what you're saying, but this one thing is kind of like interesting. I think I just cricked my neck. That's disappointing. So I think just that sort of persistently, consistently putting out things that are gradually gonna let people connect with you, and then sort of bring your, fan base, client base, just group, tribe, whatever you want to call it, together and connect with each other also. That's a fun thing that happens, and I find that on my various social media platforms, the community that gather around my rambling and my what I would consider strange ways of thinking, but they're not, because as it turns out, there's a lot of people that this resonates with, and there's a lot of people that think similarly to me. And it's great because we all have really interesting conversations. There's always really interesting points of view. There's things that I haven't thought about or I get inspired by, and this is the other thing that I must point out. Social media, initially, when it came out, was actually, rather than a social media platform, it was a social networking platform. And I think that that's a much more apt descriptor of what all these things are. It's about connection. It's not about media. Look at me, I'm producing my own TV show, essentially. It's not that. It's connecting with other people. And that's another thing that I try to keep in mind. And again, it all comes back to that know, liking, and trust. And maybe that doesn't resonate with you, by the way. Maybe you don't agree that it's about people getting to know, like, and trust you. Maybe you have a whole different reason to post on social media. And to be fair, I'm pretty sure if that didn't resonate with you, you wouldn't be listening this far. However, if it didn't, and there's some other baseline reason that you post on social media, please tell me, because I'm fascinated by people's motivations and why they do things, and so please share that with me, because I'm always open to ideas. Always. I love it. The other thing that I will say as well, because I had this starting out when I sort of decided to start posting more regularly and all of that sort of stuff. kept saying to myself, I'm not that interesting. I'm really, really dull and boring. And why would anyone care? And I'm not saying that I am interesting or, any of that. I'm not saying that. However, what I will say, aside from the connection thing, because you don't have to be interesting to connect with people, it's a human experience. But what I will say is that you are probably more interesting than you think. It's just that you've been with yourself for so long that it is completely normalized. You are completely normalized to yourself. So you think that everyone must be like that. We're not. And that's an amazing thing. And that is a beautiful thing and a fascinating thing. And therefore, just try. You're interesting. I'm telling you right now, you're interesting. You just don't realize it. Just even the way that you approach anything is interesting. And one of my mantras with this is that if this resonates with one person and it gives one person a bit of inspiration or a bit of courage to do something or just a moment of connection of not feeling alone, then I'm happy. That's it for me. That's the only reason that I do this. Literally the only reason is that. If it's just one person that is helped from this, great. I've done what I've set out to do. So anyway, I'm going to go now. I hope that you're having a lovely day. And if you'd like to support this podcast, you now can on Patreon. So go to patreon.com/EmilyDrums. Also, if you want to actually find out anything else about all the stuff that I do, you can go to emilydrums.com. You can get in touch there about if you want me to record for you or if you want a coaching session with me. We can talk more about social media. I love talking about social media. It's a fascinating subject to me. I love helping people sort of find their niche in what they want to be posting, who their audience is, what they want to put out there, where they want to be in their life, and then working backwards as to how we're going to get there. I love all that. It's and then connecting one-on-one with you is just, I love it. I just love finding out about you and just helping in every way that I can, basically. It's a whole thing. But yeah, anyway, if you'd like to find out anything else about that, or Drum Stem Club, free drum multi-tracks. Oh, there's so much. I'm not going to go into it. EmilyDrums.com, go find out. It will be a fun thing, especially if you're a researcher. There's lots of stuff on there if you enjoy researching. But anyway, I hope you're having a great day and enjoying whatever you're doing right now. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for being here and join me again next time for another subject. Who knows what I'll be talking about next time. Rambling on as ever. All right, I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
The fun is done too.